Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're jumping into a really specific and powerful form of prayer found within some Christian traditions called warfare prayer points. So, what are they? How are they supposed to work? And what's the intended purpose? Let's dive in and see what the source material has to say about it. So, what are we talking about here exactly? Well, the core idea, according to our source, comes from the belief that there's this ongoing, unseen spiritual conflict happening. And these prayer points, they're basically a tool, a way to actively get involved in that conflict by using powerful declarations that are based directly on Scripture. You know, what's really interesting is that this isn't just some long list of prayers to read. The source actually lays out a very specific, step-by-step method for how to use them effectively. So let's actually break down that framework. Okay, so here's the breakdown. First, you start by reading the scripture that goes with the prayer. That kind of grounds the whole thing. Then, and this is key, you speak the prayer out loud and with confidence. This is not supposed to be a quiet internal meditation. The source also says you should personalize it to whatever your situation is, pray consistently, and really trust in the biblical foundation you're standing on. So as you can see, this isn't passive at all. It's meant to be a very active, engaged process.
The way the source presents these prayers is kind of like a spiritual toolkit, with different tools designed for very specific challenges. Pretty cool, right? Let's open it up and see what kind of tools are in there.
All right, first up in the toolkit, we have prayers for confronting what are seen as direct spiritual attacks or opposition. These are both defensive and proactive, really aimed at pushing back against any negative forces. And wow, check this out. This is a perfect example of the assertive tone you'll find. It's not a passive, "Oh, please help me." No, it's a bold declaration, commanding a specific outcome and basing that command on the authority of the scripture. Next up is a category that's all about overcoming what are perceived as limitations. Things like negative patterns that might run in a family, or even spoken curses that people believe are causing them to be stuck or delayed in life. And you gotta notice the language here, "I reject." That's a huge deal in this practice. The person praying isn't just reciting some words. They're actively taking part, taking a personal stand, and making a really powerful statement for themselves. Okay, so we've talked defense. Now let's switch gears to offense. This category of prayers is all about creating positive momentum. Getting things moving, opening doors, and just breaking through whatever's in the way. You can feel the energy in this one, right? It's completely forward-looking. It's a proactive prayer asking for opportunities in progress, and it gets its authority from a verse in Revelation. It really shows how this toolkit is meant to be used for both protecting yourself and for moving forward. Okay, so it's not just about personal battles. The source also gets really specific about something we can all relate to: protecting our home, our marriage, and our family. And you can see how these prayers cover all the bases for the home, asking for a hedge of protection, for peace to rule instead of conflict, for unity, and for the safety of children from bad influences. It's the same direct, scripture-backed approach, but applied right to the heart of the household. Now, you might be wondering, and it's a totally natural question that the source itself actually brings up, is this whole practice considered biblical by the people who use it? Well, according to the source material, the answer is a definite yes. For its followers, the practice is rooted in scriptural references to a spiritual conflict. They point to key verses like Ephesians 6:12, which talks about a struggle not against flesh and blood, and 2 Corinthians 10:4, which mentions the weapons of our warfare as the biblical foundation for this whole approach to prayer. All right, so we've seen the method, we've seen the tools, but what's the end game here? What's the ultimate goal of all this? The sources are pretty clear that it's not just about winning one little fight, but about achieving something much, much bigger. So the ultimate goals are described as total victory and divine establishment. This tells us it isn't really about quick fixes for problems that pop up. It's about getting to a lasting state of stability, success, and spiritual strength. And this final quote from the source really just ties it all together perfectly. It argues that sustained victory doesn't come from just praying when you're in a crisis. It comes from making prayer a consistent, daily habit. It's all about shifting from desperation to discipline. So after looking at all this, we're left with a really powerful question to think about. Is victory just a one-time event we hope for, or is it actually the result of a sustained, disciplined practice? Definitely something worth pondering. Thanks for joining me on this one.